Thank you for your helpful introduction as ever, Zoltan. Could I get the panelists up here? I see two of them. There we go. Everyone's here. Yeah, it's a joy to be here. Not in our usual setting of Budapest, but Prague's not a bad substitute at all. As everyone gets settled in, I will just let you know that I'm Joe Ewins. I'm the global managing editor at Vixio. If you don't know us, we're an independent regulatory intelligence company covering global gambling regulation, and I look after our editorial team there. We're going to talk about the Balkans, challenges and opportunities. Before we get into it, why don't you guys introduce yourselves? Start with Luka here.
Thank you. I'm Luka Popovic. I'm a lawyer and a senior partner in BDK Advocati law firm. We are a regional law firm operating in Serbia, Montenegro, and Bosnia. And I'm the head of the Montenegrin office, plus I am the global head of the firm's gambling industry practice.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Zlatan Omerspahic, head of legal and compliance department at Tensoft Mostar, Bosnia and Herzegovina. We are actually a software provider, B2B, for iGaming industry, sportsbook, virtual games, casino games, and self-betting terminals. I'm in this industry almost 6 years.
Morning, everybody. My name is Petar Pešić, and I'm an attorney at law at my own law firm called Pešić Law. I've been working in the gambling industry, let's say, for the past 6 or 7 years with various B2B and B2C companies in the Balkans and abroad.
Thank you. And you made the lights come on somehow. That was impressive.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to cover a few different regions, as the guys have mentioned, where they're based. But we probably should speak first briefly about Albania. Just because that is, I think, the most significant development in the Balkan region. Gambling has been, for the last few years, almost completely banned in Albania, but things are changing there. Luka, I know it's not your specialist subject, but you can tell us a little bit about what's going on, right?
Yeah, I mean, we are neighbors. Montenegro and Albania are neighbors, so from time to time I peek over the fence to see what's happening there. Albania banned gambling in 2018. It was a populistic move of Albanian government, and they banned almost all forms of gambling. Only land-based casinos were permitted in 5-star hotels, and the state lottery also was permitted. Other than that, online, offline slots, sports betting, RNG games, everything was banned. And as you can imagine, the consequence was that all people in Albania stopped gambling immediately, right?
Yep.
Of course not.
Move on.
Of course not. So the black market bloomed. Some of the operators moved to other countries. I know some of them moved to Montenegro. And I think that the government soon realized the move was not the best one. And it took them a while to figure out what to do, actually. And this year in February, they amended the gaming legislation, and now they permitted online betting. So online betting only. Still, RNG games are not permitted, and offline slots or betting is not permitted. There are still to issue the first licenses. The number of the licenses is limited to 10. And there will be some conditions, financial conditions, a bit harsh, like mandatory deposits for security for payment of the winnings, deposits for the government fees, and so on.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think even the president himself admitted that they had been pretty much unable to prevent people gambling offshore. I mean, was it your sense that this move, was it really designed to kind of prevent gambling and links to organized crime when it came in, or was it, as you say, more of a populist decision?
I would say the latter. It was more a populistic move. And it's been the same government, the one that banned gambling in 2018 and the one that now is amending the law. So I would say that they did not do thorough analysis before they made that move.
This may be beyond things you've heard, but is there any chance of online casino following online following sports betting in being legalized?
Well, I think not in the foreseeable future. This already is a big move, but maybe in a couple of years, who knows?
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Just to jump into conversation regarding Albania, I think this is a classic example where we find out that, or regulatory find out that regulation is much better than to ban something, and always good regulation, good provisions, not permit something is always better than just forbidding something to do.
I don't think you'll find many people in the room disagreeing with you. So, speaking of things that get banned, maybe we talk about advertising for a bit. Something that really crosses every jurisdiction. I mean, as I say, at Vixio we cover gambling regulation globally, and I don't think there's one issue that's more consistently controversial around the world than advertising. Peter, in Serbia, there's been some noise, some movement around gambling advertising. Is that right?
Yes, indeed. So, effectively, I think 2 weeks ago there was, let's say, a political party that brought a new amendment law, or let's say draft of the amendments for the advertising decree that we have in Serbia, which is mostly focused on gambling, land-based and online. Essentially, they want to prohibit entire advertising of any operator, including, like we talked yesterday about the examples from Italy, where you have operator, but actually they're like foundation or something similar. So that would too be prohibited, and it would change not just the online landscape, but also the land-based. So if you go through Serbian cities, especially around the, let's say, center of the town, you would see it would look like Las Vegas back in the 60s. So that would definitely have to change by those amendments. However, those amendments are introduced by, let's say, a minor party. They are on the left side of let's say, the aisle, but they don't have enough, I think, political power to actually bring these changes to effect.
But is the feeling among the rest of the kind of political establishment in Serbia positive or negative towards gambling advertising, do you think?
I think political establishment is very open to money from gambling, to be honest. So in that sense, they will not do a lot of things to harm it. And it does have positive benefits on the society and the economy. However, the society, if we talk about it, there is a very big push to at least, in some sense, make advertising more contained, because at the moment it's and I think we spoke in Budapest 6 months back that we could expect something like this happening, and we already have first reply to that.
So even if this kind of major prohibition doesn't go through, you wouldn't be surprised if there were some restrictions on advertising in the next
yeah, I mean, to be honest, the law currently on advertising is not that restrictive, but at the same time it does have provisions which the regulator doesn't really enforce, in terms of the, let's say, the extent to which you can actually tie, for example, financial success with gambling or something like that, which is normal in many other countries as well. But there is lack of enforcement. So if you just enforce the current law, you would probably get society more to understand that actually operators are doing something to contain themselves.
Very interesting, thank you. Look, let's stay on advertising and see what the situation is elsewhere in the Balkans. Zlatan, in Bosnia, how is gambling advertising kind of perceived? Is it an issue politically?
Actually, we don't face with advertising currently any challenges, but situation regarding the regulations of advertising is particularly the same as in Serbia. We have act in place, but sometimes there is a problem and challenge with implementation, because some provisions are definitely outdated, because the marketing strategy and everything is quite part of all innovation which we face today in modern world, and I think that is the main challenge. Provisions regarding marketing is outdated, and in context, in terms of implementation of them, operators face with the problem because they don't know how to implement that on right way.
So is the concern that operators are worried that they might accidentally do the wrong thing because the regulations
Yes,
are unclear?
absolutely. They are not sure. They don't want to do wrong things, but they are not sure how to approach with some provisions. And even if they ask competent departments in regulatory authorities, very often they don't know the answers.
Oh, interesting. In Montenegro, what's the situation with?
Well,
with
we are
that?
pretty much unburdened by advertising restrictions because as long as you do not advertise gambling in the media intended for minors, you're fine. You know, you're good to go. So that's about it.
And no kind of political or public sentiment concerns around advertising?
Not specifically advertising, no.
Coming back to Serbia, just because I think it's a natural follow-on from talking about advertising, the market there has changed quite significantly. I think, but when we sat down to this panel last in Budapest, I think that morning Flutter had entered the market in Serbia by acquisition. I mean, we're 8 months or so on now, 6 months, 8 months. Has that changed the market in a kind of meaningful way? Are they approaching things differently maybe than the incumbent operators?
Well, we can immediately see that there are some things that the international operators are bringing to the Serbian market. First thing that MaxBet did, or at least that we know, MaxBet is actually the company that was acquired by Flutter, was that they actually splashed the cash on the biggest sponsorship contract in Serbian sports history, bringing a lot of money to let's say, a football club in Serbia. So you could immediately see that if they wanted to sign an agreement, they will splash the cash on that. On the other hand, in terms of advertising, we don't see a much different approach in that sense. We can see some international ads actually brought to Serbia from different operators, which are specifically not catered for Serbian market, but probably they had success on other markets in terms of potential new players. But at the moment, they are very cautious, I think, with the approach to advertising. However, when you acquire a big brand like MaxBet is in Serbia, it's much different than if you acquire a smaller brand just to enter the market with your own. So there are differences in that sense.
Very interesting. We'll come back to that and maybe talk about what the future might hold for new entrants in Serbia. Yes.
Well, because MaxBet is our client, so I cannot talk too much from, I cannot share too much information on the transaction itself, but what I can see is that a positive is already that, there is some integration, they're bringing new standards, new products, and in any case, that will be a positive effect on the market.
You think it might kind of lift standards in general?
Definitely, it's happening.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, Zlatan, let's go to you, and I think we'll start maybe with a very brief, if you can, overview of just what the picture is in Bosnia at the moment. Maybe people not up to date on the situation there in terms of gambling regulation.
Sure. Bosnia and Herzegovina has a complex constitutional, and we are divided into two federal units: Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina and Republic of Srpska. Both of those federal units has independent gambling policy, which are regulated by two gambling acts. And in terms of operators, if you want to start a business in Bosnia and Herzegovina, you can face with different conditions regarding technical, organizational measures, taxation, and so on, in Republic of Srpska and in Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina as well. In terms of suppliers, you can also face with different requirements, starting with the fact that some products are not allowed in Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Do you have to be licensed as a supplier in Bosnia and Herzegovina or not?
Operators need to have a license.
As a supplier, would you have to have a license?
No, we just to finish this. So basically, for suppliers, you face with the fact that you in Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina, you are not allowed to have online casinos. And in Republic of Srpska, you are allowed. In the Republic of Srpska, you have a definition of RNG and RTP. In Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina, even if 2024, you don't have definition of RNG. And regarding the license and certification system, operators need to have a license. In terms of suppliers, you don't have to have a B2B license. It's only necessary to get certification for products which you can put into the specific market. But it also depends. Sometimes we can talk about that challenging in the next.
Sure. You spoke earlier about the regulator with regards to advertising regulations being quite unclear. Is that a problem across the board, or is it just for advertising that the regulations are not so obvious?
Well, that's the problem for what is the pain for suppliers that we have the same situation in terms of certification. For example, a little case study, we have a client which need to extend their license, and we didn't face with any change of laws, bylaws, and anything. And before a year ago, we didn't need certification for that product, that sportsbook. And when operators started communication with the regulator and asked them for requirements to extend the license, one person from regulatory authority said to them that they need certification for sportsbook. And what's happening? Happening that you have a test laboratory which just informed from us that they need to certificate that products in terms of some rule book in Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina, which they didn't even analyze or something like that. And you have a lot of back and forth. They don't know how to proceed to certification, how to test according to the technical requirements, and you have a chance to miss the date where operators need to extend the regulation. So basically, a year ago, you didn't need certification, you didn't change any provision in law, bylaw, technical rule book of technical standards, and you just say, no, now you need to have a certification.
Right.
That's uncertainty to operators, to suppliers, and of course for certificate test labs which conduct that certification process.
And is that typical? Is that a typical example, you think, of the sort of problems that are being faced?
This is the first time I faced with this problem, and I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but I would really like that this practice stop and that just one independent case, because it could be very challenging in the other operators, because we will not know what to do next and what to expect next.
Do you think there's much chance that the regulator will come out and say very clearly, okay, this is exactly what we need, this is what we don't need?
I don't know that they even know what they want to need. And, but I really, I think that some reform and deeply analyze of betting regulation, betting standards in Bosnia and Herzegovina, hopefully, I think it's the same in Montenegro and Serbia, is necessary to get some clear provisions and to get definitely clear conditions what we need to have to fulfill all regulation, because you have some business plans, you have budgets, you have some pipeline, and someone from regulatory authority say, okay, please spend, for example, 10,000 euro for the certification. You even didn't budget in the for that year because you didn't know that someone will bring up the phone and said, okay, you need to not have certification for now.
Okay, well, crossing my fingers for you that the regulator works out what they want. Let's go to Montenegro. I won't pretend that I knew this ahead of time, but we're now called to prepare for this panel. You mentioned there's been some changes around license fees. Can you tell us a bit more there?
Yeah, we had some changes of the gaming law. I was expecting, to be honest, something bigger, like a complete overhaul of the sector, but at the end we only got some amendments in certain aspects of the gambling regulations. Yes, you're right. The concession fees, the license fees, are increased for some of the gambling forms, like for casinos. It comprises an annual part and monthly part. Annual part is fixed. It was increased from 50,000 euros to 100,000 euros, and the monthly part increased from 10% to 15% of GGR. Also for online gambling, until recently, we only had a fixed 10,000 euros flat rate monthly, regardless of the revenue.
That's monthly?
Monthly, yes, until the changes. Now, on top of the 10,000 euros fixed amount, they also added 10% of GGR on online gambling.
Okay, and your sense from operators in the market, are they upset about this change, or are they like, well, okay, shrug the shoulders and move on?
They're not happy, but what can they do? It's,
but no one's saying, oh, this is it, we're going to have to leave the market, this is too...
Not so far, no.
Okay. You mentioned also, I think, and this is something I think we'll ask the whole panel about, that there's some action being taken on the enforcement side of things, specifically to try and prevent offshore unlicensed operators from coming into the market.
Yes, indeed. Montenegro law was never clear on participation on foreign websites, offshore websites, and operators who were not licensed in Montenegro. There were some provisions which could be by analogy interpreted in that way, that you cannot play from Montenegro on offshore websites. But now it's been clearly said that you cannot do that, and there are measures to be put to prevent gambling on offshore websites from blocking the access to those websites, and also with in the payment services sector. So there will be a blockage of payments towards. There will be a blacklist of the companies that will be blocked. So the blockage is twofold: the IT aspect, access to their websites, and the payment services aspects. So the banks and other payment services providers will be obliged to block those payments, any transaction with those companies.
That's interesting. I think what we've seen globally is that these kind of blocking measures have differing impact depending on various factors, and one of which is the speed at which they tend to be updated. I mean, in some countries it can be quite a complicated process going through courts and things like that to get companies added to a block list like that. How does it work in Montenegro? Do you think it's going to be fairly nimble?
Well, we'll see. These amendments are from a few months ago. So far, the government, or I think it's actually the gambling authority who is to produce the blacklist, they still haven't made it. So we'll see. I'm not sure right now how technically that will look like and how effective that would be. But these are the first steps in that direction.
Okay. Next time we do this panel, we'll find out, I guess. I'm just curious for your countries. I mean, is there anything that goes on to try and prevent offshore gambling? Start with you, Zlatan.
Actually, no, they don't think about that. So, so basically, that is a tricky answer. But there is no any initiatives regarding offshore bettings. Okay, that could be challenging with the banking sector, not direct with gambling regulator, but with banks because they are international ownership, most of them in Bosnia and Herzegovina. It could be face challenging if you have offshore company and if you want to start the business or doing something. Of course, there is a few years ago, there is blocked all international website. You cannot put the bet on the international websites. That is something what can be related to that, but
It says that in the law that you can't.
yes.
But there's nothing in practice to prevent someone in the country from just.
No.
I mean, is that a concern? Is there? We hear a lot about channelization. Our friend Gustav likes to talk about channelization a lot, quite rightly. Is that something that is on people's minds?
I don't know. In some way, yes, but not on that way. How not on that way how it could be. No,
But not significant concern. Okay, well, in Serbia, is there much done to try and prevent citizens and residents from gambling offshore?
I think for a while now we can see that internet service providers are effectively banning certain websites if they are associated with gambling, unlicensed gambling, to be honest. So I've heard of many instances where foreign websites were not actually accessible from Serbia with a little notification that it was done by an internet service provider based on complying with local regulations. So I think that's the biggest thing. The other thing is, as Zlatan mentioned regarding the banks, a lot of banks, when they see, let's say, a payout or even a deposit from certain personal account that goes to a gambling company, they immediately will flag the account. So it happened that you have to go through actually a little bit of an investigation whether you did this for gambling offshore, and obviously your account can be blocked or the payment might not go through, so it's a risk.
That's really interesting. Coming back to Montenegro, is there some movement around responsible gambling issues? I think you've talked before about regulations maybe being lacking with regards to RG in Montenegro.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the things that I expected the new legislation, to improve, because currently we're lacking any responsible gambling provisions in our legislation. So that is still lacking, and still there is no any information on any changes to that direction that would happen anytime soon. So I mean, it's a bit strange to hear that the operators do not have any kind of obligation in that sense. Aside from preventing underage people to enter physical shops, betting shops or slot venues, and they cannot register for online gambling. But aside from that, there are no virtually any other obligations.
Is there any groundswell of concern around this? Problems here often start with kind of media stories around maybe someone that's lost a lot of money gambling, and if there are no restrictions and companies are not applying any of their own policies, that can have a knock-on effect that leads to kind of legislative crackdowns. Is there anything like that brewing that you're aware of?
Not right. Sometimes I have an impression that the government and some people in the government who are concerned about the gambling industry effects, potential negative effects, they're focused on wrong things. We see some initiatives, but they're not tackling the real issues, like the lack of these provisions and regulations. And so it's the position of the government is a bit unclear. They do not have focus on real things and real issues actually in the industry.
Zoltan, how much time have we got left? I want to make sure give people a chance to ask questions. 7 minutes. Okay, well, I've got plenty more questions, but I will throw it out to the audience in case there are any for any of the panelists. Are there any questions out there? Raise a hand if you have one. Okay, well, I'll ask you again in a minute in case you've thought of one. Peter, let's talk about, go back to the big companies that have entered the market. So Flutter have come in. Are there any others that have joined the market?
Yes, we heard of Betson also acquiring a small operator and basically introducing their own brand Risk which is also available in Croatia.
Where does this trend end? Are we going to see lots more bigger companies buying up smaller operators in Serbia, you think?
We definitely could. The market seems, let's say, bigger and growing. And I think the international operators definitely saw the opportunity to enter the Serbian market, which is, like Luka mentioned, for Montenegro, pretty similar in terms of, let's say, requirements that an operator would have on areas such as responsible gambling. So in that sense, it's pretty liberal. Players can play. You don't have to set your deposit limits or player limits, etc. It's all in, let's say, goodwill of the operator if they have such an option. And the international operators are bringing those kind of, let's say, potential measures for players to protect themselves, which is definitely, I think, useful when further down the line we can maybe see a draft of the amendments introducing more measures in responsible gambling that you can show that actually operators are willing to put some examples of good practice from abroad into the Serbian market.
Do you think this goes back to what Luka was saying, actually? Do you think this will have an effect on the standards of other operators? Do you think this is something that customers will like, and they might say, well, why this operator is letting me set a deposit limit, why aren't you doing it?
Yeah, it definitely could, and I think for the sake of further gambling regulations, it would be good to copy that, let's say, voluntarily before, as we see in other countries, it becomes a norm. So yeah, I think the society and the public and the market will definitely love that.
Very interesting. All right, this is your last chance to ask a question. Anyone got a question? Aha, yes.
I'm from Croatia, so I really want to know about Serbia banning of advertising. What about sponsorships?
Yeah, that's also included in the draft of the new. Yeah, they all want to prohibit all types of sponsorship, including individuals, teams, competitions of different sort, any kind of event. So that's let's say the proposal. But as I said, this political party is on the opposition scale. Their political power, I think, is very limited, especially in terms of actually making an agreement with the government. So in that sense, I don't foresee this becoming actually a part of the law. But if this potential draft actually succeeds in gaining public approval, you could see the government introducing something of the restrictions, but maybe in a more limited form than this.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? No, I'm going to ask one more then. Zlatan, let's talk about online casino. You mentioned that it's not permitted in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Is that something that could change? Is it? They're presumably someone must be trying to change it. I can't imagine there isn't lobbying going on.
In terms of Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina, I'm not sure that that situation could change very soon, because it is something what we need to change the law, but I'm not sure that political parties will start discussion about amendments of gambling act in the Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Maybe it's better, because when we changed the law in the Republic of Srpska, it was getting worse than what before. So maybe
be careful what you wish for.
Status quo sometimes is not so bad.
Yeah.
But what is for example, you have operators which operates in through the both of entities, and actually players from Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina, which are based in Sarajevo, for example, what they only need to register into the company which operates in Republic of Srpska with account from the Republic of
so you can still
Srpska, and they went to go to the betting retail shop and collect money which they here. And so basically,
maybe no one's too uncomfortable with the situation as it stands. Very interesting. All right, I'm going to one more question. This is for you, Luka. You mentioned again when we were talking before, and I think it ties into the kind of political conversation we were having. Tell me about the coordination body in Parliament. What is that?
Yeah, the government actually. The government recently formed this coordination body for protection of public interest in the gambling sector.
Sounds quite intense.
Exactly, and the members of this body are like 5-6 ministers and heads of agencies, heads of other governmental bodies. so high profile people from the government, and it implies that there is some significant issue, because there must be a reason why you want to make such a body. But it's not quite clear what they're going to do, actually. What are the risks that they're going to deal with? They did not clearly articulate their mission, aside from very general phrases, protecting public interest and so on. So we are yet to see what they're going to do. It seems to me like some kind of witch hunt, and again, I think this is because of the lack of focus of the government, and maybe, the government is comprised of different political parties. There is a wide coalition, and some of them are more than others against gambling as whole, as a sector. And it might be that some of them are simply pushing their agenda, their political agenda. Some of them are even for a complete ban of gambling during their political campaign before election. So we'll see, but really there is no, it's not clear at the moment what actually their focus would be. So I think that this also might be just another populistic move.
Okay, well, watch this space. This will encourage everyone to come back next year and figure out what's going on, just for the same for the rest of these markets. There's one. Am I allowed to take a question? There we go. We got a question.
Just one last question about for Luka. You mentioned, if I understood correctly, that operators in Montenegro don't have any obligations in terms of responsible gambling.
That's right. That's right.
For now, this is good for the industry, obviously, because they have to do this. But do you think it will eventually become a problem for the industry in the long run?
Well, the industry actually is taking some steps. There are some rules, internal rules, that they are implying, that they are introducing, but this is their internal thing, so there is no enforcement of those rules. Most of them are doing something like you can set limits as a player on your own online gambling account and similar things, but this is completely internally produced by the operators. So there is no... sorry?
It's voluntary. There's no...
Yeah, exactly, completely voluntarily. So the industry understands that this has to be tackled, that there have to be rules, but the legislature still has not recognized this. At some point, this will have to be regulated. I mean, it makes no sense, not to have...
I think when it becomes regulated, would it be too late in terms of problem gambling rates?
I think there is a risk. What I haven't mentioned is that gambling in Montenegro, especially sports betting, is quite widespread. It's almost a national pastime. A lot of people play, and I think that there is a significant risk, definitely. But also, I don't see that some serious studies are being made, to actually analyze the situation in that sense.
Very good question. Thank you very much. I think we're out of time. Thank you very much, guys. Really interesting, and thank you very much for listening to us. Thank you.